All right, first of all, as I showed you last time, we use the master pages to create a series of different styles of layout. I created a bunch of different layouts. My A master, let's go into preview mode. This is just a basic, simple, modified column grid. So off to the side, I've got open areas where I can put photographs. I could have added more grid lines to it. But for the most part, what you're going to see is I've kept everything very simple. I've also given myself a good variety. So there's vertical, I've got more horizontal, so I can put photographs at the top, text at the bottom. Another thing to think about for your master pages is think of it as two-page spreads. In this case, I've got an area for text, a large photo, and several small photos, instead of it just being mirrored on one side or the other. You can swap things up. Same way for this one. I've got one side that'll give me this particular layout and another side that'll give me this style of layout. Here's this one, more or less for each one. Once I got those ready, it's like I said, giving the foundation of a house. All I had to do was drag on those different master pages and then fill in the content. I've already filled in some of the content for everything, and you can get an idea of how I use them. There's that double page spread. Place my text in here, and I've got the photos to match up to it. Even when I place things on here, I don't have to be stuck with that specific style of grid. I can play around. For instance, this 3-page spread, if I go into preview mode, you can see I had it just divided in half, and I meant to have 2 photographs on here, top and bottom. But once I played around with it, I saw, hey, there's 3 photographs that would really work well with it. And so I just deviated from my structure. Totally okay to do. The main thing is, once I had that grid established, it was easy to make those changes. It took a lot of the guesswork out of where I should place things and how I should place things on here. And every page looks different, but it's all consistent with its style. And there's a few more things that I can add to it. To help me find these grids and establish these grids, there's 2 places I went to. First of all, I've got a series of magazines and books on the countertop right here. Look up a variety of grids. See what other magazines are doing. Find out what works and what doesn't work. I didn't have to spend a lot of time playing around with placing things in grids. I saw what another person did, and I borrowed from it. I said, hey, I like the fact that it has a large picture and I've got 4 underneath. Gives me a little area for text. So pulling from other ideas, other inspirations, that's the first place that you can go to. There's great magazines on the table, there's great books that you should look through. If you're going to do a Google search, here's the smart way of going about it. If I just did a Google search for magazine, photo, yeah, I've already searched it, photo layout, this is what it's going to give me. Not that they're bad layouts, but these particular styles of layout don't lend themselves to what we're trying to do. We're trying to tell a visual narrative story, a story with the photos and the pictures. Some of these look really good and some of them may work really well, but it's not enough when I start adding on other bits, lots of photographs or lots of different kinds of photographs, especially if I'm trying to do fancy things with text. Some of these work better than others. A smarter search to do, instead of a photo layout, do a grid layout. When I start to see the grid structure of a magazine, this is where I can start to place my content into that structure. I can actually look at even these thumbnails and get an idea of where to put pictures and where to put text. This is the whole purpose of using the grid. The grid gives me the ability to be flexible with my design and layout. So if you're going to do a Google search to find a grid structure and how to use it, wow, this one's really complex, and how to use it, it would be better to do a magazine grid layout than just doing a simple magazine spread or photo layout, that kind of thing. Much, much smarter to go this route. Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper and see exactly how I place things and put it on here. Of course, I'm working with good color and font choices. Those are kind of the last little bits. As far as the pictures that I choose, I tried to group common pictures together across the spread. So as I chose them, for instance, I've got a picture of the president He's a little more formal, but he's relaxed, and here he's definitely informal and very relaxed. And so it's a good kind of beginning introduction to parallel those two. For this particular spread, they had lots of pictures of him and his wife, or him with family members. So here's him and his wife doing a outdoor activity, volunteer, doing sports, him with a baby, him and his wife together. They all have something in common. Scroll down, you've got Air Force One, helicopters, you got the family with the dog, you've got the president with groups of people, the president signing off on different things. I'm not just placing photos willy-nilly. There's a reason and a purpose to them as well. Does that make sense? Y'all tracking with it? As you lay out your photographs, be thinking about which ones actually work together. To be honest, I'm not going to read the article, so I'm not really looking to tie in what's being said in the article with the photograph. I'm going to give you that kind of leeway. Some magazines would want you to do that. For this one, we'll keep it the same. And this one I liked because it's ending, he's walking off, it's kind of a good final photograph. And I've got lots of pictures to choose from. These were the ones that have something in common. The same is true for the other photographer. He's a narrative photographer, but if you start looking at the composition or even the subject matter of what he's photographing, you'll find some similarities that work well with your photos. Cool? Other things to pay attention to, several of them, I'm running them all the way to the edge, so I've got bleeded photographs. Some of them, I don't. If you bleed a photograph off the edge, it gives a sense of presence that the photograph is bigger than the area that it is. And it's a good way of just kind of enveloping the entire layout, especially if you can go from one page to the other. Having little elements that do that work out well. So for instance, this page, kept it in the margins at the top, but I ran it all the way to the edges for the bottom. In this case, this way I kept it on the bottom and the top as well. Let's see, some other things to think about when working with this. Okay, when placing them on the page, also pay attention to which way people are looking on here. So I've got him and everybody is looking to the left. This works out well. Why does this work out well that they're looking to the left?
It keeps you from kind of falling off the page.
Yeah.
Following your gaze.
Yeah. It's an implied line. The line is moving towards the page. The line is moving towards the text. It keeps me on here. If I select a photo, you can select it, and up here is where you can flop it around. Of course, I need to reposition it. If I have them looking off the page this way, psychologically, now my eyes are running off of the magazine. It loses something to there. Now, if this picture was on this page, that would be totally okay. But the fact that it's flopped out and it's now going off the page, I prefer it going over this way. That's a much better crop and much better use of the time. This one, if I was to pull up the original one, I did rotate. I wanted him to be on this side so I can have an open space for the text on this side. And so I took the picture, and originally he's on the right side, and I flopped it over to the left side. Whenever you rotate photos like this, what do we need to pay attention to? What problems could come up?
Things like words in the background.
Words in the background. Make sure there's nothing that could be seen that's in the background or any problems that could come up. When you look at this photograph, do you see anything that may cause a problem? His flag, yes. Right there. That would be a big no-no for the president to be wearing a backwards flag, unless he's in the military and you keep the stars next to your heart. But it's obvious that that's been flopped around for something like this. The quick and easy fix to this would be to find another photograph that matches my needs. Just find something that fits better with it. Or I can take it into Photoshop and I can clone stamp it out or try to flip it around. That would take a little bit more work. If it was me, I would just try to find another photograph that works for this area. But if I absolutely had to have it, that's when you break out Photoshop and try to fix that particular area. Pretty cool? Let's see, some other things to think on. Like that layout, like the way that they worked. Remember, you can break your grid. You can do some creative cropping. You can see on several of these, the photograph could have been a lot taller. But in order to make it fit with my text, I have it cropped down. We'll talk about fitting text in just a second. For this one, here's a special thing about this one. I like the photo and I like his position right up here. I need it to match down here. I think it's a little too stark cutting it off. What I would like to do is to take this photo, and you can see I can even pull it down. That's obviously not going to work. I can't have the dark and the light cutting through my text. Have it fade into a solid color. So for instance, if I change the color of my box to, I think I've already pre-picked one that matched. Yeah, that looks good. Let's say I wanted my background to be this dark brown and I wanted this to fade into that dark brown. Here's the easy way of doing it. You can select your photo, the photo itself, not the photo frame. One of the effects you can add is called a gradient feather. Gradient feather, when I apply it, you can see it's starting to happen now, will allow me to gradually erase away or feather away, mask it away from here. As far as how the effects works, you can see the black area, the dark area would be my starting point. So if I wanted a more gradual feather, how it works there, and then the white or transparent area is the stopping point. And you can change up the starting and stopping and how quick you want it to go through. And I say OK to that, it'll lock it in. And then it'd be a simple matter of changing up the text color that I have to match the way it looks. Let's see, we'll make it paper. So that looks like a stronger, specific kind of layout as well. All cool on that? Little things that you can add, little things you can do to it. Don't think that all of your photographs have to be stuck in a frame that looks like this. When you notice my pictures, how many pictures are supposed to be on your layout total? 20, at least 20 or more. And how many pages can you get away with? 10. For mine, I've got 10 pages total. My front cover page will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So I've got 20 total. Even with these, you can see how large I can get away with for the photos. I don't have a bunch of little pictures. I've got a few nice big pictures, and it works out really, really well. Again, I want the photographs to be your main emphasis for how things look. The text is kind of secondary to it. Nice big pictures that work well. Fill up the page or fill in blank spaces from here. As far as working with the text, if I scroll all the way to the end, you can see I've got it running almost to the very end of my 10th page. In the end, I would want to line that up and make sure my widows and orphans were taken care of as well. What if I needed more space? In other words, what if I wanted to have more room for text? What are some things that I could do to get myself more text? What are some easy things that you would do? I need more room for text. In other words, I need more blank space here at the bottom.
Yeah, you could widen the text.
Widen the text box, make the text box bigger. There's that one, so it gives me a few inches. Not just this text box, but since they're all linked together, I've actually given myself some open space. I can make one text box bigger. Let's make it all, should be all black so we can see it. I can make one text box bigger on another page, will affect that page as well. So that'll give me a few inches. Even on my, hey, here's a whole open area I can work with. Here's a whole open area here. So pulling these down just a little bit pulls the text from other pages, and now you can see I've gotten a lot more area that I can pull with. Pretty cool? What if I wanted to do the opposite? I needed to fill in the area. I'm undoing everything that I did. What are some things I can do to, of course I can make the text box a lot smaller as well. What can I do to photographs? Yeah, make them bigger. Make your photographs bigger. Take up a lot more room. This is why we crop them. You've got more photo than is necessary. If I make a photograph bigger, it's going to push in on my text, and that's going to give me a lot less text area, and that'll fill up some of those areas. Now, of course, I want to stay within my grid structure. So some of these may be easier to manipulate than others. Another thing you can do is you can add, I've got my newspaper library opened up, add pull quotes to it. I've got a predefined pull quote. I could easily add that to an area, either within my text or somewhere on top of a photograph, something that'll push my text out of the way and give me a lot more room to fill up the area. Make sense? The main thing is you want it to look like a nice full area, plus adding things like pull quotes, adding bylines, cut lines, extra little bits adds some visual interest. It breaks up the monotony of just a solid block of text that's already there. If you look on my first page, I've got a drop cap, big initial cap. I've indented it over. I've made it part of the design in itself. You can get away with these kind of things too. The main thing is I'm looking at your photos and making sure that the spread works really, really well with the photos is there. The text itself will be kind of secondary. All cool? Questions on that? Let's see, what was the last thing I wanted to say? Oh, as far as changing the font size and leading, let's get rid of that. If I needed, in a pinch, to get a few more inches out of this, and I didn't want to tear up the size of my text boxes or my photographs, watch how drastically, if I'd selected all the text, let's choose just the article. Since it's all linked, there we go. Got the article selected. Right now it's 11 point. If I was to drop it down to 10 point text, you can see 1 point change got me all of that space in there. If I made it larger, that would push it out even more. I would be flowing a lot more text onto it. The other thing you can do is adjust your leading. Right now mine's at 14 point. If I drop it down to 13 point, without having to change the size of my type, I've gotten several inches that I can now play with as well. As far as acceptable sizes of fonts for magazines or any type of publication, a good readable font is between 10 and 14, maybe 16 points. Unless you're dealing with somebody who has bad eyesight, 16 points is kind of the larger limit. I've seen some people go larger. Anything below 10 points tends to be just like the fine print of something. It's the ultra baby type text that you just kind of has to be on there. Does that make sense? Anything below that, and it depends on the font that I'm using. So I can change the size of my font. I can change up the leading. Any of those are acceptable to work with to get my text to fit in the area. The final thing that needs to be added to this specific layout is your page numbers. Page numbers have to be a part of your design. There's two ways you can add it. If you're going to go ahead and set up your master pages, you can add your text numbers to your master page. Or if you've done like I've done and you made your master pages but didn't put text numbers, you can just manually place them inside of here. Here's how you can deal with page numbers. Page numbers can go at the top or the bottom, can go in the center, whatever works out. For mine, I think it looks best as bottom left and right hand side. Of course, I've got my text box. You can type in, you can make up page numbers. It doesn't have to be page 1. I'm just going to start at page 34. Now, of course, need to make it larger and make it something that's noticeable. If it's just the page number by itself, that may or may work out. Personally, I think that's a little bit too large. I can go smaller. Yeah, so there's 34, and then 35 would be on that particular page. Make sure it's consistent with the distance between the two edges. There's more distance there, so I need to move those over. Other things you can do, even page numbers can have a design in themselves. They don't have to be just a number on a page. If I wanted to, I can give this a border, or I can give something behind it to let the page number stand out. I've seen people create things like these, where maybe it's a paper, come on, number, whoop, to the front. There we go. Since it's white on top of white, I can't see anything. It's a paper number, and then they've got that set off to it. And so now the page number would look something like this. Maybe I would even pull in the color scheme that I have. Something like that would work out well. I've seen people do just a circle on the background. Bring it to the front, send it to the back. So that could be a page number design. Make sense? It's more than just a number on the side. It's anything that I want from here. If you are going to put your page numbers on your master pages, do it first. And here's how to do it. Here's the fun part. Let's say I did an A master page. And I knew it has to be down at the bottom. I'll go ahead and type out the number that I want. I'm just going to do a dummy number. And I would format it the way I want it to look. Now, what do master pages do? What's the advantage of using those?
They apply a style automatically.
Yep, they apply a style automatically to each page that you have. So if I put a 34 on an A master page, that 34, that number is going to appear on every page that uses that master, right? Here's how to add automatic page numbers to whatever page that you're on. I'm in my master page. I've got it styled the way I want. If I go to type and insert a special character, in this case it's going to be a marker of the current page number. This is what it looks like. Right now it's giving me an A. Why an A? It's the A master. I'm on A master page. But it's an automatic marker telling me what page it's automatically on. So if I jumped into any page that's using an A master, for instance this first one here, I don't see it because my photograph is covering it up. This is why you do it first, but there's page 2. It automatically added it to there. What about this page? Should be page 3. Why isn't it on page 3? Can you tell? I'm using a B master, and B master doesn't have my page number. So you'd have to do this for each of the master pages that you're using. Let's see if I have one that's there. Yeah, A down here, same thing. So there it is, added to that side. The main thing is, if you're using your master pages and you're setting it up at the beginning, go ahead and add your page numbers, the style and the way it looks, and then you can add your content on top of it, and so it could be seen. When I set up this document, I probably did the entire layout of everything in less than 2 hours. The vast majority of my time was spent making up master pages, looking at the examples that I could find either online or in magazines. Once I got these master pages set, it was simply a matter of clicking and dragging them on and seeing what styles work together, and then I just placed the pictures in there. It took a lot of the guesswork out of it. I was able to flow very, very quickly with these. There was not much I had to do besides deal with the text later. Cool? Any questions on laying this out? Ideas? Things you need to see again? Okay. For today's exercise, here's what I want you to think about. We need to create a design, a single page photo design for the title page. I've got the, yeah. For this particular one, it's called Master and Commander, Presidency and Photographs. Pay attention to how it's set up. Master and Commander, that's the main title. The Presidency and Photographs, this is more of a subtitle. So this would be the Papa Bear text, and this would be more of a Mama Bear secondary style of text. All I need to do is to choose a photograph that hasn't been used before that fits well with this particular scheme. We did this one for the last class. Worked well, it's got some good open areas, some things to think about. Thought that one was a good one. What I look for in photographs is, does it have an open area that I could add text to? I definitely don't want to put important information on top of the figures. And is it compelling enough? This one, you know, not a lot of open area. It could work. Already used that one. There was one where he looks like Darth. Yeah, he looks like Darth Vader, like taking someone down right here. Looks like he's choking her. I see that. Hey, this one's pretty cool. Let's use this one. So I'm going to go into Photoshop, make a new document. I'm going to make it 8.5 by 11, larger than is necessary. And as far as the resolution, why am I using 300?
Because it's for print.
For print. Good print resolution is 300. You can go up to 600 if necessary, and we'll keep it at this. When I create my document, I'm going to go ahead and draw off some guidelines. I'm going to keep it at 1/2 inch on each side. This way I know I've got a good buffer border, and I'm not going to have any text or any important information flow off of that. Everything else can go up to that edge. We're going to use this photograph. I like this photograph because it's got some open areas. It's got a picture of him. Hey, he's even framed off. The photograph that I have, however, is very horizontal. The area I'm working with is vertical, so I need to definitely crop it off from here. I could get away with moving him up a little bit taller, and we'll work with that. By the way, Command and colon will get rid of your guides, or hide your guides so you can see from this. Okay, let's add text to it. Got my Word document. I'll copy this over. Grab my type tool. When you open up your type tool, make sure you open up your character palette so you got your full stuff that you're working with. Master and Commander of the Presidency in photographs. Out of habit, I like putting each word in its own layer. So I'm taking Master, cutting it, and pasting it on its own bit. And cut it. Remember in Photoshop, everything has its own layer. Master and Commander. I'll keep this together since I'll leave that as a secondary bit of text. When I place it on here, some things to consider as far as size and what I can do. If I was to place this up here, I'm not saying this is the best place to put it. The background of it is starting to get very light. It works well down here because, black background, dark background, light foreground. But when I have a light background up here, I start to have some issues that I run into. If I was to place it right on top of his shirt there, I'm losing visual interest. If you choose a photograph that has a light background, this is where your drop shadow comes in handy. Let me show you the one that we did last time. The issue that came up for here. Yeah, so this is what we created last time. I'll get rid of little bits and we'll keep Master and Commander. If I turned off my layer effects and I use just Master and Commander, you can see how it's difficult to read Commander because of the background. Y'all seeing that? The light background, light foreground. When I add a drop shadow to it, in this case, pulled up Commander, got drop shadow, just a small, subtle one. Let's turn it on so we can see it. Little bit of a drop shadow gives enough of a contrast to where I can see exactly what needs to, I can see the letters. I can see the outline of the letters. If it's too much, yeah, that's not too bad. If it's too much of a size, that doesn't look good. In my opinion, drop shadows need to be just subtle enough to give me a contrast. That's the purpose of this one. Of adding this particular effect. It's to give you some contrast and make it stand out. That only happens if you've got contrasting backgrounds. If I did it for this, let's say I changed up the color of this to a dark blue. Can y'all read that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Not too well. But I like it, it's blue. No, sorry, I can't read it. If I wanted to read the blue, here's what I can do. Let's take on Master. Drop shadow, not going to be my friend. Outer glow. Outer glow is what we want. Think of outer glow as the opposite of a shadow. It's lightening up the area. Change up the size and the spread of it. And this will add a little bit of a distance between the two. Not saying that looks good. Actually, that doesn't look good. Maybe a different color. There we go, a little bit softer. It's a way of adding contrast to the way it looks. I think the easiest thing to do, make it white. You can change up the and, make it an ampersand. Master and Commander. Master and Commander. Maybe the and is going to be like super huge and behind everything. Ooh, and now I'll get my blue in there. I'll pull out some of this blue. Oh yeah, that looks good. That looks like a movie. Y'all go away. I'm having fun. Mr. Cook got me saying that. Have anybody had him in the class and he says, y'all go away, I'm having fun? Okay. The presidency in photographs, I'll keep that as a secondary kind of thing. Other things you can do, as you saw in my previous one, let's turn on visibility. Let's undo everything that I've done. Let's revert it. If you need to add contrast or add a way of bringing the white for the background, all I did for that was add a rectangle, change the color of it, change the blending mode of it, and it made it much darker back there. It gave it a way for things to pop out. In our case, this actually works out pretty well. It's probably not the best design. Some other things that I can do to it is make the presidency and photographs stand out, change up my font, look a little bit different. I do want to add some sort of little design. Maybe instead of a rectangle, we'll do a line. Set my fill color to 0, set my stroke to, let's pick up some of that red. Use the colors that are in your photograph. For crying out loud. Doesn't have to be difficult. Width of it, why is my... Oh. I have learned a secret to Photoshop. Okay, check out, what should my width of my line be? A lot wider than it is. 34 point, I should be seeing this. If this happens to you, this drove me insane. Click on your line style and pay attention to where it's aligned to. There's 3 different selections. You can align it to the inside of a shape, the outside, or the middle. Right now, if it's on the inside of a line, there's no inside of a single line. If it was a square, it'd be on the inside of the square. In this case, if I do the outside, now it looks like it's on the outside. That's the issue that I ran into. It's not like Illustrator. No, sorry. Maybe my end caps will make them rounded over. Too thick. Too thin. Just right. If you don't want to risk moving around your layer that you have, remember you can lock it down. Got the picture, click on your lock. Now no matter what happens, I can't accidentally move it. But I do want to automatically select my shape. Let's just make a copy of the shape and drag it down. Something like that, something that'll set it apart. Okay, the main thing is, when you create your main page, your title page for this particular article, I want you to build it out in Photoshop and play around with the placement of each of the little elements. You could do this in InDesign. What I wanted to show you was, when I was a student and we had to work in Photoshop, and I actually learned on Quark Express, which is like the old version of InDesign, you couldn't use layered files. So things like all of these layers here as a Photoshop file wouldn't work in InDesign or even in Quark. Now they do. So when I save it, we'll do save as, or save, come on. And I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file. We'll call this command, come on. Command front, Photoshop file. Saving it to my desktop. And when I jump into InDesign and I'll place it in there and it works from there. One issue that a lot of students run into is that, remember, if you need to make edits to this or any changes, you got to jump into Photoshop and make those changes with that. All cool? Any questions so far on the project or this particular exercise? Okay. When you, like I said, this is part of your layout anyway, so you're not going to turn in this file per se as an exercise file. When you're finished with the project, you're going to package up everything. This will be packaged along with it. So what I'm going to look for is a Photoshop file to be a part of your overall package when you're finished. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to y'all and let y'all get started on today's lesson. ScreenFlow quit on me. Oh no, wait. Nope, it's still going.